Hi, my name is Tara Thompson, and I am the Director of Alum Community here at Phillips Theological Seminary. I'm so excited that our alum spotlight this month is Paul Ellis Jackson. We will be speaking to him about a number of things, Phillips Theological Seminary and his ministry in Wichita, Kansas. I hope you enjoy. Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us and being an alum spotlight this month. First, I want to ask you, what are some of your most meaningful memories from your time at Phillips?
Uh, the people and the professors. So just the community that we were able to be a part of and the exposure to as a gay man, I didn't know that I could go to seminary. So
Mhm.
there it was, and it was amazing and just lovely, lovely people and challenging, um, caring professors, uh, challenging and caring classmates. So,
Is there a class or experience or moment at Phillips that particularly stands out to you?
there were some moments in chapel that were transcendent and very, powerful. There was a beautiful sermon once done on recalling, the speaker was talking about recalling her baptism, and it really, really spoke to me. There was it was my first, Hebrew Bible class, and we were having a discussion on an angry God.
Mm.
And I remember it was in the afternoon, it was a week-long class, we worked really hard, we were all kinda tired, so we thought, "Okay, we gotta have this kind of discussion." And it turned out it actually, it probably more than any other class really profoundly changed my theology in a positive way because I was challenged to look at something that I really hadn't looked at before. And it's a long story, but it just basically has to do with that another student really, really challenged something that I had said appropriately,
Mhm.
um, but made me go, "Oh my." And so those moments of self-revelation, when we're so sure that we're so sure, and then and, and
Absolutely.
right, right, and then just to gently be kind of like, "Really?" The comment that was made, we were talking about an angry God, and I said something along the lines of, "I don't think God gets angry, like we think. I think God is disappointed in us sometimes."
Mhm.
And this person who's now one of my dearest friends looked at me and actually said, "God was disappointed in Sandy Hook?" And I had to sit with her for just a second to realize she was talking about the massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary. And to just it literally, I could feel all of my every conception I had about the Holy One. And I just felt my theology literally, the ground underneath me kind of shook because I was like, absolutely not. There was no disappointment that there was righteous anger, if that's the turn of the phrase. So it was. I mean, I don't know if everybody has that dramatic of encounters with the Holy One there, but that one really, really has always stuck out to me, and I've preached about it more than once.
Wow, that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I think many of us who have been through seminary, maybe not an experience of that magnitude, but something similar, especially an introduction to Hebrew Bible, I think.
Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, I think it was the prophets class. I think it was.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, still, my Hebrew Bible knowledge was. I'm a second career minister. I came to this. I turned 50 and had an opportunity to finally answer a call that I had felt for many, many years, and took advantage of some opportunities that were presented to me, and basically just followed uh, that small, still voice that kept saying, "No, Paul, this is what you're doing," and did it. So, yeah.
And we're so glad you did.
I had to. I tell people all the time, come into my office at the church and, things are we're having a good time. And I honestly can tell them that it feels like everything in my life has prepared me to be in the position that I'm at now. All the experiences I've had, good and bad relationships, good and bad, everything that has occurred in my life to this point. Um, this feels like it was preparation to be able to do this work. So I hope I can do it for at least a few more years.
That's wonderful. And Paul, you are one of our alum board members, and we're thankful for that. Why is staying connected to Phillips important to you?
Because the mission of the seminary is so vital, and it's especially in a time when we're incredibly polarized. Something that surprised me about seminary is that it was very little about belief. We never, I mean, we would have those conversations as students, but that's not
Mm.
what the classes were about. That's not what we were being prepared for. We were being prepared to be church, leaders, regardless of belief. We could have, and I'll do some seminary chat here. We could have the highest or the lowest Christology. You know, we could have the strongest connection and faith that we had, or we could be really, really questioning. And because of that freedom, and because of that opportunity to be comfortable in a space where faith didn't necessarily matter, yeah, that meant a lot, and it prepared me then to serve a congregation that is diverse, and so I serve everything from I have a couple of self-avowed atheists who are with us out of a desire to be in community. I have some practicing Buddhists for the same reason, and a lot of recovering Catholics, and so, I mean, just the whole gamut, so
Fantastic.
yeah.
And you and your husband are monthly givers to the seminary, and I want to thank you for that.
Are we still doing that? I thought we
You're
canceled.
still doing that.
You know, every year at the end of the year, we sit down and we look at what our giving's going to be. And while of course we always wish it could be more, Phillips is always one of our top priorities. I always preach around commitment. We call it commitment, not stewardship. But I always preach around commitment time. And I always use this little phrase. I say, if you ever really need to know what your priorities in life are, just go look at your checkbook or go look at your bank account, because what you spend your money on is what's important to you. I think it's that simple, and so that's why even though it's, not the millions that we'd like to be giving, um, even what we give, we it's important to us that we're able to give what we can.
Absolutely, and we are thankful for that, so thank you, and glad to know that it is important to you. What is a meaningful moment story from your ministry? I know you serve, in Wichita, Kansas. So what is a meaningful moment from there?
Well, this is kind of a general thing, and it kind of ties into the other piece of why I think seminary is important. Um, every once in a while, I find myself in a situation where I'm literally saying to myself, "Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. You were trained for this. This is, or sitting there going, I'm speechless. I don't have well, no, you were trained to have the words. Just stop it and fall back on your training." And for me, more than anything, especially as a second career minister, being able to fall back on the training that I was given at Phillips and my supervisor here, and I was also in a unique situation that I basically had a 10-year apprenticeship with a really, really solid minister. And I got to learn a lot in that regard. And since we're non-denominational, we belong to the NACCC, the National Association of Congregational Christian Churches, which is kind of the sister group to the United Churches of Christ. they formed about the same time, but because of that, we don't really have minister formation in the traditional sense. So having a 10-year apprenticeship was priceless. It really was, and I'm grateful for that. If I had to point to specific situations, um, so prayer has going into seminary, prayer was my biggest concern. I come out of a fundamentalist household. My grandfather was an American Baptist preacher who was very fundamentalist, and I have memories of him holding the Bible over his head and fire and brimstone and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
But prayer was my biggest concern, my biggest I don't want to get prayer wrong. And I know that sounds weird, but what I've learned and what seminary obviously helped me with, but what I've learned and where it has worked for me in my setting is that it doesn't matter. They appreciate if it's a simple short prayer. If I think, put a lot of thought into it and more detailed, eh, they appreciate prayers. And so that's a skill I continue to work on it. I'll work on it the rest of my life. The other thing that has been surprising to me, when I was 19 to 21, I worked in the emergency room here in Wichita. So I'm not a stranger to crises, to death, to any of those things. But being present, being allowed to be present, being honored and being asked to be with people at the end of their lives, to be there with the families, to work with everyone. That's been incredibly meaningful to me, and something that I think is just so important that a minister be able to walk with a family, and be there. And I don't think everybody can do it. And I honestly, I don't think if I hadn't had those experiences in the ER when I was younger,
Mhm.
uh, I don't know if I would be able, or it's hard to be a non-anxious presence when you're like, there for the end. So now it's become these sacred moments, and we celebrate births, with all this, incredible, kind of sacredness. And I try to approach our death uh, in the same manner. And since I'm serving a relatively older congregation, um, I I was just thinking about this earlier. It's 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 hard in the sense to love these people, and then I'm gonna have to say goodbye to them, and then I'm gonna have to do their services, So there's that piece to it, and then there's kind of I'm driving to the hospital because 'cause I've gotten the call, and it's kind of this sigh of, "I know how the next few days are gonna play out," right? And then, though, being able to set that all aside, walk into the hospital room, and be there and be what I need to be at that time for those people, even though I love them as dearly, as the family does, so.
That's one of the hard things I I encountered of congregational ministry, and I did say, we are called into the room at some of the most sacred times, births and deaths, and that they want you there, they need you there, and that you do provide that non-anxious presence, so thank you for that because that is hard, truly a calling, so we are grateful for that. And you've gone through your own health struggles these past few years. What?
I have
How has the seminary community and your community sustained you and encouraged you
well, from
during
just
this
a
time?
Sure. From a practical standpoint, the alumni board has been I had a routine knee replacement in June of 2022. Long story short, it got infected, 7 surgeries later, and 3 different knees trying to save my leg. I ended up at Mayo, May of 25. So we just passed my 1-year anniversary of my amputation. Did lose my left leg above the knee, which is it's significant. I lost about, what, a fifth of my body, so it's a great way to lose weight, but I'm saying Um, and I got my first prosthesis in August. They had to put that off for a significant amount of time because of the infection. We had to just make sure I didn't have anything lingering in any cranny. So a lot going on. But um, so, in a practical way, the seminary was there. The alumni board was so understanding that year, and then, allowed me to be present when I could be present. And then when I wasn't able to be there, I was so thrilled that I was finally able to make it down there, at least for part of our meeting in January. And I anticipate, this year I'll be much more present. The only reason I went to Mayo is because my congregation insisted. um, they've had so many positive experiences there. There was some thinking that maybe there was some Hail Mary pass, that could be done. They raised the funds, they sent me up there, and when it became obvious, and I loved the surgeon up there. He was so he he said, "Paul, I could rebuild your knee. I'm gonna have to use some of the muscle from, your lower leg, from the back of your lower leg, and, you're not gonna have a lot of flexibility, and there's a good chance it'll probably get infected again, just that's what's the nature of these bone infections are." And then he looked at me and said, "So what do you wanna do?" I was like he said, "More than anything in the world, what do you wanna do?" I said, "Well, I gotta get back out on my recumbent bike, or it's a trike down." I said, I gotta, that's my spiritual place." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, we could do that, but it'll just have to be with a mechanical leg."
Mm.
And that shifted that perspective. And then when I met the rehab doc, and they spend all this time with you, and they bring in, Mayo's, I was so blessed and so incredibly fortunate, and, what a privilege to get to be able to be up there. They bring all these people, this whole team together, and I met the director of rehab, who turned out to be my rehab doctor,
Mhm.
and we're having this great conversation, and he spent time with me and Dwayne and everybody else. That's my husband, is Dwayne. Everybody else had left the room, and it was just the 3 of us, and he turns around to write something down, and I look down, and he's an amputee. And
Mm.
I for a second, just kinda, it's one of those, "Oh, okay," and then went on with the conversation, and he goes, "Do you have any final questions for me?" And I said, "One," and he goes, "Oh, yes, I was 27, motorcycle accident."
Mm.
But as I wrote him later, the the grace, the resilience, the fact that it was a non-issue in any way,
Mm.
what I didn't know. He just walked in the room, he was gonna be my doctor, right? Those attributes and his resilience that were modeled for me right there in that prayer was really sacred. And, it it I say this a lot, but it changed the trajectory of my illness. Last Christmas, we got a new website. We had a photographer come in, take a bunch of photographs of the church, and I said, "You know what? It's really important. I want this picture, please." And I had the whole congregation come down, and I wanted them to join me in the middle. And I came down to the pulpit, and we turned around, and it's a picture from the chancel, and it's me and the whole congregation. And I made copies, and I took them up there to all of everybody who took care of me at Mayo, with a letter explaining that I know they know that they work for an incredible organization with an incredible mission, but they didn't just heal me, they impacted hundreds of lives, through their work. And I learned just on my anniversary trip up there, that that picture is framed, and it is in the, orthopedic surgeon's workroom, at Mayo Clinic, and the story that goes along with that. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you for being you,
Yeah.
answering the calling, and your support of Phillips and being an important part of our community. We appreciate you, Paul. Yes.
Okay, I'd be totally remiss if I did not thank the seminary for taking me to Nicaragua in 2015. So at the
Mm.
time, there was an immersion requirement. I don't know if it's still in the curriculum, but
Mhm.
and I opted to go to Nicaragua. I've been back, I think, 7 times since.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
we're going in January of
Mhm.
2027. I have developed friendships, relationships with the community down there that we've been working with. I know we just lost Just Hope, the organization in Tulsa that was doing this work, but yeah, it's been my honor to pick up what we can in Wichita, and we're going to try to get a partner trip down there. But the fact that it was Phillips that got me to Nicaragua, and that was another life-changing moment because you do not know, you just don't know. We do not know in America until you are
No.
faced with life outside of America. So,
Fantastic. So, students, future students, go on your immersion trip.
yeah, oh, yeah. Take
Absolutely.
advantage. Oh, man.
Yes.
And if it's
Yes.
Wolf Ranks or I don't know where they're going now, whatever it is, take advantage of it because what you're gonna see, you're gonna have an experience that you probably would never have or and may never have the opportunity had to have that experience.
That is important to share. Thank you, Paul, and thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you.
And, I'm a preacher, so I could talk for another hour.
Absolutely.
Tara, it's great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Paul.